So clean tech's global, obviously. It's global because climate's all interrelated. It doesn't just stop at the border, like I said. You know, we've got pollution coming over from China. Our waters are having increasing amounts of mercury in them. From what? From coal power plants, whether they're in Europe, the US, China, doesn't matter. Coal's got smokestacks have mercury that come out of them and end up in the water. And now our fish are contaminated pretty much globally. All of our fish stocks are. And you see warnings now, right? Okay, don't eat more than 1 serving of tuna a week. Well, that's from pollution. And if we can cut that down and cut our carbon down, obviously our fish stocks will get healthier as well. And also if we stop overfishing. So we can really see here, you know, the US is by far the biggest CO2 emitter, but China's coming up very quickly. Russia's also pretty bad as well. So in terms of, it's really interesting when you look at economic efficiency, how much GDP do you make per output of carbon? And as we can see, we're pretty low on the scale in terms of our efficiency when you look at GDP dollars per kilogram of carbon produced. Whereas Brazil and France are very, very efficient. So it doesn't, for the US, I mean, we are a great country and we have a lot of resources. We just really haven't focused on it. So we've kind of gotten the least expensive method in terms of growing our economy. But you could argue nowadays, especially with the amount of money that we spend in the Middle East protecting, if we consider them our oil supplies, because we sure spend an appropriate amount of money acting like those are ours, that we do spend a tremendous amount of money just securing our oil supplies and our fossil fuel supplies. So, you know, depending on where you want to spend money, might be better off spending it in other ways. So some of the investment themes in terms of what we look at as a company, just in, you know, when you look at general areas, I have these ranked by, you know, some of the ones I feel like are going to be some of the best for the future, pretty good, and then ones that I tend to avoid. So we've got efficiency is usually the best way to go. So anytime you can take an existing infrastructure and just make it more efficient, it's the cheapest. So I really look to companies that are allowing for a more efficient grid, for instance. How do you get cars more efficient? Anytime you can just focus on that, it's going to be a very fast payoff, higher ROI. So start to look for companies that are involved in the efficiency space. Wind's always good. It's now a global market. It's very established and will continue to get larger. It's in terms of renewable, it's some of the cheapest generation power we can make for renewable power. Power storage. Who saw the A123 IPO in the last couple of weeks? Is anyone familiar with that? A couple of you? So there's a new battery company that just came online, A123 Systems. They make lithium-ion batteries. We're going to talk a little bit about them later on because I think that's a cornerstone for what's happening with that market. I think power storage is incredibly important. Solar, obviously, we see it around. It's growing. I love it for a lot of different ways, and we'll go into that more a little bit. So on the blue part, so this is, I think, going to have good investment returns, but maybe not as good as the top ones there. Waste to energy, those are typically big plants, so unless you've got a lot of money and want a 5 to 10% return, you probably won't see a lot of ways to invest in waste to energy. Transportation can be good. I think car business is just really hard right now to make money in. So, and there's a lot of governments subsidizing their car companies like us. We own one now, GM. So it's a tough market to be in. And pollution control, I think, is another good market. Again, kind of picking your areas. The ones I don't really like, in terms of what I wouldn't invest in right now in the clean tech area, is some kind of algae to fuel systems. Those are really early stage right now. It can be done. Algae can make diesel fuel. They can make crude oil. You can make ethanol from algae. The problem is you need someone to buy it for about $10 a gallon at least. So as soon as you find someone that will buy that, I will invest in algae. Or they can bring the price down, but I just don't see it happening anytime soon. So we're order of 3 away from being close to algae being efficient. So you're going to hear a lot about it. Everybody's in love with it because it's a great concept, but it just doesn't work economically. Energy sectors, again, efficiency I think is really gaining traction. Solar right now, we've got a massive supply excess. Prices have just been dropping because 2007 was a huge year for the solar business. Went like this, massive subsidies globally. But what do subsidies do? They bring on a lot of excess supply capacity. And then when there's not quite enough demand to meet the supply, which has happened really starting in the beginning of 2008, we've seen prices drop and drop and drop. And they're almost half of what they were if you look at a solar panel module right now and what they were in early 08. And you can really see it when we look at the charts of some of these solar stocks. So that's something to keep in mind. So as you can see, the right place to be. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of pollution control companies. So this was a bit skewered by one company that did extremely well that came out on the NASDAQ that happened to be one of our investments. But smart grid, you can see, has been an incredibly important area this year to be involved with. But the other areas have slightly outperformed the indexes. So I'm expecting all that to just get better over time.